Most women spend far too much time wondering how to stay in a man's mind. They replay conversations, send another text, search for the perfect reply, and hope one more message will make the difference. But the truth is much simpler than that. Sometimes just three carefully chosen words can stay with him far longer than 100 messages ever could. And no, I'm not talking about saying, I love you. Those words matter, but they are not the ones I'm talking about today. I'm talking about words that quietly slip into his thoughts and keep coming back when he least expects them. They don't shout for attention, they create emotion. And emotion is what people remember. Before I reveal those three words, stay with me until the very end because the words alone are not enough. The real secret is knowing exactly when and how to say them so they feel completely natural. That's what makes them powerful. Imagine being the woman he keeps thinking about while driving home, while working, or while trying to fall asleep. Not because you chased him, not because you tried to impress him, but because something you said touched a place inside him that he couldn't explain. That is the difference between being noticed for a moment and being remembered for a very long time. If you've ever wondered why some women seem impossible to forget while others slowly disappear from memory, you're about to understand the reason. And trust me, the answer may surprise you. Most people believe attraction begins with logic. They think someone notices beauty, intelligence, success, or kindness, checks every box, and decides to fall for them. Real life rarely works that way. The strongest connections usually begin with a feeling before there is ever a clear explanation. You meet someone, and something about them simply stays with you. Maybe it was a smile, maybe it was one sentence, maybe it was the calm way they looked at you. Whatever it was, it planted a memory that refused to leave. Human emotions often move first, while logic arrives much later to explain what the heart already decided. That's why trying harder doesn't always create stronger attraction. Sending more messages, explaining yourself again and again, or constantly trying to prove your value usually creates pressure instead of curiosity. What people remember isn't endless effort. They remember moments that made them feel something real. That's why these three simple words matter so much. They don't work because they're clever. They work because they invite emotion. They paint a picture inside his imagination instead of giving him another fact to forget. Once a feeling is connected to your presence, your memory becomes much harder to erase. Keep watching because in a moment you'll discover why these words have such a lasting effect and why most people never realize they have this kind of power. Here's something almost nobody tells you. The mind doesn't hold on to information nearly as strongly as it holds on to emotion. Think about the people you've never forgotten. Chances are it wasn't because they looked perfect or said everything exactly right. It was because they made you feel seen, understood, excited, peaceful, or curious. Feelings leave fingerprints that facts never can. That's why someone can remember one short conversation for years while forgetting hundreds of ordinary ones. The same thing happens in attraction. A simple moment filled with genuine emotion can become more valuable than weeks of constant talking. That's where these three words quietly change everything. They don't force someone to think about you. They simply create the kind of emotional spark that naturally returns to the surface later. The best part is that they don't sound rehearsed or dramatic. They feel light, honest, and effortless. That's exactly why they work. When something feels authentic, it slips past the walls people usually keep around their emotions. It settles into memory without asking for permission. So don't make the mistake of believing attraction is about doing more. Sometimes less creates a deeper impact. In just a moment, I'll show you the exact phrase and how to use it so naturally that it becomes part of a conversation instead of sounding planned. That's where the real magic begins. If you'd like, I can continue rewriting the rest of the script in the same style while keeping the overall length unchanged. We all like to believe we make smart, conscious choices. We think every feeling is carefully planned and every connection happens because we decided it should. But the truth is often very different. Deep emotions usually begin before the logical mind catches up. By the time your thoughts explain why you like someone, your heart has often made the first move. That's why people sometimes feel an instant connection they cannot explain. They call it luck, chemistry, or fate. In reality, something much deeper is happening beneath the surface. Hidden emotional patterns notice tiny signals before logic ever has a chance to speak. A certain tone of voice, a familiar smile, a playful sentence, even the way someone pauses before speaking can quietly leave a mark. None of it feels planned, yet it creates a powerful emotional response. This is exactly where many women unknowingly miss the opportunity to create lasting attraction. They begin conversations with messages that are polite but completely ordinary. Hey, how are you? How was your day? Hope everything is going well. There is nothing wrong with those words. They are kind. They are respectful. But they rarely create emotion. They don't paint a picture. They don't spark curiosity. They don't interrupt the endless stream of ordinary conversations he has every day. If your words don't create a feeling, his mind has nothing meaningful to hold on to. Stay with me, because the next idea explains why some simple conversations disappear forever while others stay alive in someone's thoughts long after they end. Think about someone you haven't seen in years. Chances are you don't remember every sentence they spoke. You probably can't repeat an entire conversation word for word, but you remember exactly how they made you feel. Maybe they made you laugh until your stomach hurt. Maybe they made you feel calm when everything else felt stressful. Maybe one unexpected sentence stayed with you for years. That's because the mind stores emotions far more deeply than plain information. Words become memorable only when they are attached to feelings. Without emotion, even the nicest conversation slowly fades into the background. This is why perfect grammar, carefully planned messages, and completely safe topics rarely create lasting attraction on their own. The deeper mind reacts to images, possibilities, and emotional meaning. Sometimes one playful sentence with genuine warmth creates a stronger memory than 20 perfectly written texts. When your words gently spark curiosity or paint a picture inside his imagination, they slip past his normal thinking. Suddenly, he isn't replying simply because he's being polite. He's replying because something inside the conversation feels different. It feels alive. Before you send your next message, ask yourself one simple question. Does this create a feeling? Does it spark curiosity? Does it leave him imagining something? Or is it simply filling silence? That small shift changes everything. Keep watching, because the next part reveals why ordinary conversations are forgotten while emotionally rich moments keep replaying in someone's mind. Let's be honest, most conversations begin exactly the same way. Hey, how are you? Hope your day is going well. They are friendly, they are respectful, and they are almost impossible to remember. Kindness absolutely matters. Never lose that. But kindness alone doesn't automatically create attraction. Neutral greetings rarely light up the emotional side of the mind. They simply keep a conversation moving without giving it any real energy. The brain doesn't save every sentence like a recording device. Instead, it paints emotional snapshots. It remembers the excitement, the laughter, the surprise, and the feeling behind the moment, while the ordinary details slowly disappear. That's why someone can forget an entire conversation, but still remember how one person made them smile. If your opening message sounds exactly like dozens of others he has already seen this week, his brain quietly places it into the familiar category and moves on. Nothing stands out, stands. Nothing asks to be remembered. Think about how a familiar fragrance can instantly remind you of someone from years ago. Words can work in much the same way when they carry emotional meaning. The issue isn't that you reached out. The issue is whether your message gave his mind something worth revisiting. Because when your words create a genuine emotional picture instead of another routine exchange, they stop being ordinary conversation and start becoming memorable experiences. Here's where it becomes even more interesting. The human brain naturally notices anything that feels fresh or unexpected. That's how we've survived throughout history. New sounds, unusual movements, or unfamiliar situations immediately pulled our attention because they might have mattered. That same instinct still works today. When someone says something different from everyone else, our attention naturally shifts toward them. If your first message gently breaks the usual pattern while also creating emotion, you activate two powerful responses at the same time. First, he notices you. Second, his mind quietly labels the interaction as something worth remembering. But there is an important balance here. Being different without emotional depth only creates a brief moment of amusement. A clever joke may earn a smile, but it disappears quickly if it doesn't connect to something meaningful. Real attraction grows when surprise and emotion work together. That's why the difference between another routine greeting and a playful, image-filled sentence is much bigger than most people realize. One quietly fades away, the other settles into memory and keeps returning throughout the day. Once you begin taking up emotional space inside someone's thoughts, the entire dynamic changes. You're no longer just another conversation. You're becoming an experience. And trust me, the next part is where everything starts coming together. This is the mistake many women never even notice. Without realizing it, they begin sounding exactly like everyone else. The same greetings, the same questions, the same predictable rhythm. Nothing feels unique anymore. As a result, they slowly disappear into the background instead of standing out. Then frustration begins to grow. To fix it, they send longer texts, they add more emojis, they offer bigger compliments, they ask question after question just to keep the conversation alive. But too much effort often has the opposite effect. Instead of creating excitement, it creates pressure. Real attraction needs breathing room. It grows inside the space where curiosity still exists and where both people continue discovering each other naturally. When every thought is explained and every silence is filled, there is nothing left for imagination to explore. The emotional balance quietly shifts. Instead of wondering how to earn your attention, he begins feeling that everything has already been handed to him. People naturally value what feels meaningful and gradually earned. When something appears endlessly available, the mind often gives it less importance without even realizing it. Even constant questioning can drain the energy from a conversation if it starts feeling like an interview instead of a shared experience. The goal isn't to speak more. The goal is to create moments that stay. Small sparks, genuine curiosity, quiet emotion, tiny moments that interrupt the ordinary rhythm of his day. Imagine everyone else carrying buckets of water while you quietly strike a single match. The room instantly feels different. That's what emotional connection does. When your words gently suggest possibility and paint simple pictures inside his imagination, you're no longer making small talk. You're creating an experience his mind naturally wants to revisit long after the conversation ends. Instead of chasing his attention with longer messages, endless compliments, or constant effort, try something different. Step back just a little. Give the conversation room to breathe. Let your presence carry the weight instead of your words doing all the work. Sometimes silence creates more curiosity than another paragraph ever could. Give him the chance to wonder about you instead of giving him every answer before he even asks. People remember what they have space to think about. They rarely replay conversations that explained everything from beginning to end. The moments that stay alive are the ones that leave a little mystery behind. When you stop trying to outtalk every other woman in his messages and begin focusing on emotional impact, everything starts to change. You stop becoming another notification on his phone and slowly become the person he naturally looks forward to hearing from. That's where real attraction quietly begins.
And now we reach the part you've been waiting for. This is where all the psychology turns into something simple you can actually use. The phrase itself is incredibly short. In fact, you might even smile when you hear it because it seems almost too simple to matter. But don't underestimate simple things. Some of the strongest emotional triggers are hidden inside ordinary words. Stay with me because the next few minutes may completely change the way you think about attraction and connection.
The three words are you and me. At first, they don't sound extraordinary. You may even think, is that really it? But the real strength has never been in the number of words. It's in the picture they quietly create. You and me doesn't simply mention two people. It gently places both of you inside the same moment, the same experience, the same story. Without forcing anything, those words invite the imagination to fill in the rest. Instead of hearing two separate individuals talking, his mind begins to picture the two of you together. That's why the phrase feels different. The deeper mind naturally responds to images more than explanations. A simple sentence that creates a mental picture often stays longer than a long conversation full of facts. When you casually say, "You and me should try that place sometime," Or you and me would probably laugh the whole way through that. You're doing something much bigger than making a suggestion. You're quietly creating a future scene that his imagination can step into. You're not asking him to analyze anything. You're inviting him to experience a possibility. That small shift changes the emotional tone of the conversation in a way most people never even notice. Keep watching, because this next idea explains why those three little words can leave a much bigger impression than people expect. Here's why this works so naturally. Most people ask from a position of uncertainty. They say, "Would you maybe like to go out sometime?" Or, "If you're free, maybe we could have dinner." There is nothing wrong with those questions, but they often place all the power on the other person to decide whether the idea even deserves attention. Compare that with saying, "You and me should grab dinner one day." Notice the difference. It doesn't sound demanding. It doesn't sound pushy. It simply presents a shared experience as something easy, natural, and enjoyable. Instead of asking for approval, you're introducing a possibility with quiet confidence. That creates a completely different feeling. The mind responds much more strongly to experiences it can imagine than to ideas it has to evaluate. Think of the imagination like a movie screen. Most conversations hand people information. They process it, respond, and quickly move on. But you and me gives the imagination a scene to play. Suddenly, he isn't just reading your message anymore. He's picturing both of you laughing together, exploring somewhere new, sharing a joke, or creating a memory. That emotional picture becomes the hook, and because it feels light instead of heavy, it creates curiosity instead of pressure. That's exactly why simple words often leave the deepest mark. Another reason this phrase is so effective is its flexibility. You can connect it to almost anything without making it sound forced. You and me should try that coffee shop. You and me would probably be terrible at that game. You and me could definitely survive that adventure. Even playful jokes become stronger because they gently reinforce the picture of togetherness. Notice that none of these examples demand commitment. They simply invite the imagination to explore a possibility. That's an important difference. Attraction rarely grows through pressure. It grows through curiosity and shared emotional moments. Every time you naturally use you and me, you're quietly strengthening the picture of connection without making it feel serious or overwhelming. Instead of sounding like someone chasing attention, you sound like someone already comfortable imagining enjoyable experiences together. That relaxed confidence is what makes the phrase memorable. It changes the conversation from two strangers exchanging messages into two people beginning to picture shared experiences. And once that image starts replaying in someone's mind, your conversations naturally begin to feel different from everyone else's. You're no longer competing for attention. You're creating moments his imagination wants to revisit long after the chat is over. There's another layer most people completely miss. Those three simple words quietly communicate qualities that naturally attract people without ever needing to announce them. The first is confidence. When you say, "you and me," you're speaking as someone comfortable with yourself. You're not begging for approval or waiting to be chosen. You're simply expressing an idea with ease. That kind of calm confidence is attractive because it suggests emotional security rather than desperation. The second quality is clarity. Instead of speaking in circles or hiding behind uncertainty, you communicate directly and naturally. In a world where so many conversations are filled with mixed signals, clear communication feels refreshing. People trust it because it removes unnecessary confusion. The third quality is initiative. Many people spend weeks waiting for someone else to make the first move. They hope the other person will suggest meeting, starting a conversation, or creating a memory together. But when you naturally introduce a shared possibility, you show that you're willing to participate instead of simply waiting. That doesn't mean taking over the relationship. It means showing confidence without pressure. These three qualities working together create a completely different emotional experience. They make you memorable, not because you said more than everyone else, but because you created a feeling that quietly stayed behind after the conversation ended. And trust me, the next part reveals exactly how to use this phrase at the perfect moment so it feels effortless while leaving the strongest possible impression. When you naturally take the lead, something interesting happens. You don't come across as pushy or demanding. You come across as engaged, confident, and genuinely interested in creating a shared experience. There's a big difference. You're not trying to control the conversation.
You're simply helping it move forward. That quiet confidence changes the energy between two people. It shows you're not sitting back waiting for life to decide everything for you. You're willing to create moments instead of only reacting to them. But here's the part many people miss. The exact same words can feel exciting or uncomfortable depending on how and when you use them. Timing changes everything. Imagine the two of you laughing about how competitive you both become during board games. In the middle of that laughter, you smile and say, "You and me would be dangerous on the same team." It feels playful. It feels natural. It gently plants an image without demanding anything.
Now imagine meeting someone for the first time and after only a few minutes looking them straight in the eyes and saying, "You and me belong together." Same basic idea, completely different feeling. Instead of creating curiosity, it creates pressure because the emotional foundation hasn't been built yet. Stay with me because understanding this difference can completely change the way your conversations are remembered. Here's another example that shows just how powerful timing really is. Maybe you're talking about music and suddenly discover you both love the same band. The conversation is flowing easily. You laugh and casually say, "You and me have to see them live one day." Notice how relaxed that feels. It's simply sharing an exciting possibility. His imagination naturally fills in the picture without feeling forced. Now compare that with saying, "You and me should disappear together for an entire weekend," when you barely know each other. That doesn't build attraction. It often activates caution because it asks for far more emotional commitment than the relationship has earned. The difference is subtle, but it matters. The best version of "you and me" acts like an open door. It quietly invites him to step closer if he wants to. The wrong version feels like someone trying to pull him through that door before he's ready. The deeper mind responds beautifully to gentle suggestions because suggestions leave room for imagination. They don't need to explain every detail. They simply plant a small seed and allow curiosity to do the rest. That's why less is often more. Instead of trying to convince someone, let the image quietly speak for itself. And trust me, the next point is even more important because it explains exactly when these three words create their strongest emotional effect. If you want "you and me" to create real impact, don't throw it into every conversation just because you know the phrase. Think of it like lighting a match. A match only works when there's something ready to catch fire. The first rule is choosing the right moment. This isn't optional. These words work best after you've already shared a little connection. That doesn't mean there needs to be obvious chemistry or dramatic flirting. A simple laugh, a shared opinion, a funny story, a common interest. Those little moments quietly build comfort. Once that comfort exists, the phrase feels natural instead of surprising. Imagine discovering that both of you can quote the same favorite movie. That's the perfect opening. You smile and say, "You and me could probably act out that entire movie." Suddenly, you've created a playful picture instead of another ordinary sentence. Notice how effortless it sounds. That's exactly the goal. You're not forcing attraction. You're giving it room to grow. Curiosity always grows better in relaxed moments than in conversations filled with pressure. Keep watching because one final piece ties everything together, and it's the part most people completely overlook. The second rule is all about your tone. The words themselves matter, but the feeling behind them matters even more. You could say the perfect phrase, but if your voice sounds nervous or your energy quietly asks for approval, the emotional effect disappears. People don't only listen to words, they feel confidence, hesitation, excitement, and calm long before they analyze the sentence itself. That's why relaxed confidence is so powerful. Say the words with a smile, with lightness, and with genuine curiosity rather than expectation. Don't rush them. Don't over-explain them. Let them land naturally inside the conversation and then move forward without trying to force a reaction. That's where the real magic happens. Confidence doesn't shout. It stays calm. It doesn't chase validation. It simply shares an idea and allows the other person to respond however they choose. Ironically, that emotional freedom often creates much stronger attraction than trying to impress someone. The goal isn't to make every conversation unforgettable. The goal is to create one small emotional moment that quietly stays with him after everything else has faded. And once you understand how timing, tone, and imagination work together, you'll realize that sometimes three simple words can create a memory that lasts far longer than 1,000 perfectly written messages.